and then carry it into public.
That's powerful. It's powerful for you to stand up. But you're not doing it for them. You're doing it for you. You're doing. I mean, that's the truth. They're going to have their own mirror because they're going to see images, but you're doing it. You're doing it for you. So you're still on the journey. You keep doing it. That's the truth.
About 15 minutes.
Okay, all right. So let's keep going with the conversation. We'll wrap up in about 10. Yes, ma'am.
Question.
Stand up for me.
My husband and I moved to Pensacola a while ago, a couple of decades ago, from Tampa. And I about died when we moved here. I really thought we died and gone to hell. And we were out in Tampa. And it was just like he was always having to tell me, can't say that in public, or watch out and all of that. And I saw such overt racism, sexism, all of those things that I didn't think I saw when I lived in Tampa. And he worked for a long time at Baptist Hospital, where he would be a person you wouldn't even see because of the job he had. And he heard like nurses talking where they didn't know he was in the room. They were talking about niggers. And then he worked in the shop. And the people there just, they felt it was just fine and okay to say things about our wonderful president and his, ape of a wife and just all of those things. But the more I think about it, it's like, I don't know. I'm sure it was in Tampa too, but it was like we had more variety of people, and people didn't talk like that. They weren't overtly racial for the most part. And I don't know which is worse or which is better. I mean, obviously, because I didn't see it when I lived in Tampa, and it was so obvious when I came up here, and it wasn't just race.
Wow.
You name it.
How long did you live in Tampa?
I didn't live there long, but I'm 10 years maybe.
Okay.
I've lived here 20, and you say you love it, and it's just so hard for me to love it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I mean, my husband loved me, and when I take this dress off, he go, baby. So it ain't, you take the good, the bad, and the ugly. So, but Tampa, I'm surprised you would say that. Tampa, just, Steve Hayes, who's the president for Visit Pensacola, talks about when I think they were going to move the orange, what's the FAMU game, the huge game?
Oh, yeah.
The classic, they were going to move that to Tampa, and the same weekend that they were going to move that, the KKK walked down the street. This was just a few years ago, before they moved it. So, so it is. I think it is. It's what we choose to
maybe
see.
the environment.
Yeah.
I mean, I worked in the medical field. I worked in social services and all that. And then for him to see that at a hospital and be exposed to that, and that it was okay with management at some level.
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't know if it's worse. If I was exposed, if people had the views and had better sense than to say things, how I would intend. I honestly don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I appreciate you sharing that. It's hard for me to believe that folks don't see it, and I think sometimes we get comfortable in where we are in our I hesitate to call it privilege because I don't know your life, but our privileges, our environment, so we get comfortable, being there.
Well, I do think, I'm not saying it didn't exist, what I'm saying is people didn't seem to think it was okay to let other people know.
Yeah, one of the brothers I met when I took a picture with him too. I saw him at the Veterans Parade, and he's proud to tell me he's 80-something years old. And I worked at a bookstore when I first got here part-time, and so he said, Robin, I've seen your picture in the paper, and I hadn't seen him in years. He said, I've seen your picture in the paper, and see what you're talking about, and I just don't see it here. And I said, really? So he's 87 and pretty much been here for 50-something years. And so I said, really? And so he said, yeah. He said, I go to First Baptist Church, and such and such is married to a black person, and such is married to an Ethiopian, and such. And I'm thinking, wow, so if you can name the black people, You know, so and I told him, I said, well, you know, so I think it is a little bit different, and so you're just choosing not to see it. So if I go, it's like the kids, you know, you go, nah, 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 I don't see that, I have homework, but it, you know, it's still there. So yeah, I think it's what we choose to see. That's not the best answer, I'm gonna let somebody else in here. So, Samantha?
Well, I was gonna
And
make
then
like kind of.
Stand up.
Well, I was gonna make 2 comments to what she said. So basically, as far as what I always tell white people about racism is that when they say, oh, well, I don't think there's any racism or something like that, when they say those sort of things, or like when you say that you know, there was this covert racism and that you didn't see it, I always say, well, did you actually talk to a person of color and get their perspective? So that's why
I worked in environments that were.
But I'm just saying, like, there's a difference in asking someone point blank, what is your experience as a Black American in the United States? That's what I always tell people. I say, ask that very direct question, and you'll get your answer. Not just assume that, oh, because they're floating in your environment, okay? Because a lot of times, Black folks, we don't want to, or any other person of color, we don't want to have these conversations with white people because we're afraid that we're going to automatically get shut down. That you are going to say racism doesn't exist, and you're going to try and gaslight
Samantha,
us.
say the Black people you know, because
The Black people I know, whatever.
Okay.
Yeah, we're gonna get gaslighted. So that's why, you know, generally we don't want to have those conversations.
Which helps nobody. So if you don't ask and you don't say, then that
Yeah, and
sort
that's
of
what I say. It doesn't help anyone. So usually,
Yeah, someone comes.
So
go
we
ahead and stand up. So let me go. Oh, go ahead and finish. I'm sorry.
Well, and also I heard another thing, an analogy about covert racism versus overt racism. I just heard that it's all racism. It's just traveling at different speeds.
Oh, okay.
So.
It doesn't, yeah. So can you get here, Bill? Just kind of get. Just want to make sure we get other voices in here. She's standing up and ready.
Well, yeah, because, I mean, I used to be in the military and there was racism there. It's racism everywhere, but it's having the courage when you see it, when you're not African American or someone of color, to, when you see those things happening, bring that awareness to somebody. It's like, you know what, that's not right. And they can go back and do their own research and make their own opinions, because you can't control how somebody else thinks, feels about people of color. You know, and if you don't go and have that leap of faith for that uncomfortable moment, there'll never be no change. And that's the God honest truth, you know. Sometimes people, they're like, oh, well, you have this token Black over here, this token Black over there. We're still Black, and you still look at us in a certain way. So for me, like she said, racism is racism, no matter how you put the spin on it. But it's people that are not being oppressed and not of those populations that are having issues talk up and start standing behind and with and for the people that are being oppressed. That's the only way it's going to be changed. So for me, you know, I'm a social work major, so for me, I want to help everybody, but especially the oppressed populations that actually need the help. And as long as people continue to think it's okay to be silent about the issues, oh, well, I haven't had this experience. Yes, you have. You just chose to ignore it, you know, because it's been going on for hundreds and hundreds of years, regardless of the advancements that's already there. So that's it, you know, but it's just hard.
You know,
Let me get her and then Dickie up
my
here.
husband did speak up in many occasions, not just on Black and white issues, but just on fairness and everything. He ended up, after 15 years, losing his job. Whereas in Tampa, if people spoke like that in an office, they would have been fired for speaking that way.
Yeah.
But that's the only way to do more change.
Oh.
Yeah, but he will. And he's got a good job.
And then give it to the sister here after you do.
Well, I grew up with a Georgia cracker daddy, and mostly in Milton and Baghdad. A lot of serious prejudices. I now golf 6 days a week with a bunch of old, serious rednecks. And I speak up every day. Every time they crack up one of their redneck jokes, one of their black jokes, the only time they don't say it is when we have 2 golfers that are black that golf with us. And oh, they love them to death while they're there. But as soon as they're gone, they're back to their stuff. And so they just call me the resident Democrat crazy man, and I speak up every day. And I throw the mirror at them, I throw it at myself, and I've thrown off a whole lot of stuff from the way I was raised, and I'm proud of it. All I can say is you just got to do what you do and try and fight it. Like she says, you got to speak up. You got to just confront them. Don't let them tell their little black jokes and their comments about people on welfare and just bring it up. The biggest rip-offs on welfare are the white folks that are ripping it off by billions, not stealing a lunch or a steak. That's what I do. I just talk it up, and that's what you got to do.
So this sister back here, Bill, in the back here, and while she's going there, one of the things Melody Hobson, the financial guru, says that she was on a board with this white brother, and so that I don't remember the board name, but that he walked into this room. I think the reason she got on the board, he walked into this room and everybody looked like him, so he walked out. So how big, and this is not a nonprofit board, so this is a board you get paid to be on, right? One of those corporate boards. So how big and bad and bold enough will you dare to be to do that when you walk in the room and everybody looks like you, or thinks like you, or talks like you, acts like you? It's why, you know, my radio has WWF 106, 104, 790, what's the other one? What's his name? Oof, I have to pray about him. Rush Limbaugh and Alex. So you have to listen to, because if you only listen to one perspective, that's what you're going to get. So if you only listen to Fox, if you only listen to MSNBC, you're going to start believing the rhetoric. Back to the Saturday Night Live video, my friend at Slate says, or my friend at NPR says. So it's you have to listen to the perspectives, because there's a slant always. So even what I'm telling you comes from this slant of, you know, being raised around these amazing folks who told these amazing stories and had these amazing ways about them. So mine is slanted too, and you know, so you have to be bold, big and bad and bold enough to listen to others. When we were talking, this brother here, he said, well, why are you here? I said, because I want to learn from folks who ain't like me. And that's the ones who are 180 degrees out from me is what I dig. And I ain't trying to take you home, you know, really. I don't want you to come, you know, well, okay, so that sounds crazy. I don't want you to stay overnight. I want you to come to my house, right? Somebody asked me about real quick, and I'll let you say, somebody asked me about the Confederate statues. You know, Robin, what do you think about that? I said, listen, I said, you know, you don't deny history. No, you don't do this revisionist history. You don't deny history. I said, but in Belmont de Villiers, anybody know where the Delta House is? The Elks, right there is a city parking lot. Right there, it's a parking lot right across from Dale's house. Yeah, right there. And there's this house of repute. There's 2 of them there. One 2-story one was called Chi Chi Charlie's, the ladies of the night. The other one was called Jean's H House. Okay, so I said, you know, those were there, and that's the history of Belmont de Villiers, the red light district in Pensacola. But I don't want some statue of Miss Jean standing up there with a $10 bill saying, here lies Miss Jean's, here lies Chi Chi Charlie's. You know, so you can talk about history. We don't have to show everything. And that's the conversation that we need to push through to, you know, the truth, and pushing that and showing that, and how we visualize who we want to be. Right? So we can say, oh, well, that was then. Well, how many times have we changed street names? You go up there's Brent, is Beverly, is something, is something else. Mobile Highway is Cervantes. I mean, come on. We can do this, y'all. We can absolutely do this. We just gotta be big and bad and bold enough. Yes, ma'am.
Well, I've been listening to everybody, and the comments are provocative, and I'm thinking of experiences that I've had, and even your pictures, when you were, the pictures of Pensacola, it's a little frustrating for me because I like Pensacola a lot. I'm a native, and I feel blessed to be from here. But I do find it frustrating that I don't see myself or people who look like me and the contributions that they have made historically to make Pensacola what it is when I'm in county, city buildings, you know, just everywhere. Like I was looking around at a restaurant and there were shipyards and people building ships and I mean firemen. Nobody looked like me. It's very difficult. I mean, I'm old enough and it still gets under my skin and I'm not sure how to get over that hump to love a place, but just feel like there's still a disconnect. You know, I appreciate the history and I make efforts to learn about the history of Black people in this area and what we've contributed. But it makes me angry that it's not just considered history, that it is still considered Black history. That's the first thing. The second thing, I make it a point to extend myself. Like I joined the Junior League, I joined Fiesta because I wanted to get to know different people. But what I found was there was zero interest in there being more inclusion. What I found was until I started asking questions about what are we doing to include more people of color, I was acceptable until I wasn't. And then I became radical and unacceptable. And I figured out I just have to live with that label. I mean, because